You see this right here? This is an iPod Classic from 2007. It charges over USB-C, it streams to my Bluetooth headphones, it charges wirelessly, and it runs software Apple never wanted you to have. Here's how I modded mine and how you can too. In September 2007, Apple released two products in the same month. One was the iPhone, the other was this. The iPod Classic is one of the last click-wheel iPods Apple ever made, and they released it the same week as that first iPhone. Apple was already moving on. Apple discontinued the iPod Classic the same year they launched Apple Music, the service that would replace owned music with rented streaming. 18 years later, mine still works, so I bought a kit to bring it into 2026. And the build is 4 pieces. First, the Classic Connect 2 from Moonlit Market. It replaces the back housing with Bluetooth 5.2, a USB-C charging, which you actually can also wire it to be data transfer as well, but it's the same speed as the original wire. It has Qi wireless charging, a haptic click wheel module, stuff the original just never really had. And to take full advantage of that wireless charging, I actually just 3D printed this flat Apple MagSafe charger dock I found on MakerWorld, and a SCADA's pegboard holder to display the iPod when it's not in use. If you're looking for high quality 3D prints, look no further than PCBWay, today's sponsor. PCBWay offers everything from custom PCBs in assembly to 3D printing and CNC machining. I've actually used their CNC machining before and the products look great. It's super simple, you just upload your files, get an instant quote, and they'll ship your parts right to your door. Check out PCBWay.com, links in the description, and thanks again to them for making projects like this possible. Second, it has the iFlash uDual from Tarkan. This replaces the spinning hard drive with 2 microSD slots. Moonlit officially supports it, and the modding community trusts it as well. Third, we have a black tinted faceplate from Obsolete Electronics. The Classic Connect's 2 back is a frosted clear. The tinted front gives it a stealth, half-visible internals look. Apple never made an iPod that looked quite like this. And fourth, I wanted to install Rockbox, an open source firmware, 20 plus years in development, and 4.0 hit last year, and it's really one of the main reasons why I'm doing this mod. Total cost with everything including the SD cards and tools is just over $200. So you might be asking, is it worth it? Stick around to find out. Damn, this is hard. Opening an iPod Classic, specifically the 6th and 7th generations, is famously terrible. You can see that I'm just scratching that up there too. Good thing we're replacing the front and back plate here. Oh my gosh, look how much I've been cutting up this finger. Damage yourself doing this. You need to put gloves on. Always keep some nitrile gloves on hand. Should be able to help us get in here. Bro, I'm like getting nowhere. There's a secret to this. The case is held shut by metal clips around the perimeter. The only safe way is to pry a thin plastic tool wedged in the seam. You have to work around the edge and pop each clip one at a time. Ooh, there we go. Okay. Okay, I got it in there. Once you feel it click, you really can get it in there. And I'm pretty sure I got one clip in, so that's kind of the key, I guess. Finally got it open here. A lot of hard work. But once you're in, 2 ribbon cables hold the front to the back, the battery and the headphone jack. Disconnect the battery first because you could potentially short something out and the logic board will be dead. You don't want that. So we're going to be going from something this size to this size here. This is the original storage, 80 gigabytes of mechanical hard drive, an aluminum disc that spins at over 4,000 RPM every time you press play. I actually also have a 5th generation here, and you can hear the hard drive starting to fail every time you press play. And this is what replaces it, a microSD card the size of my fingernail. If you've been around technology, you know what these are. They technically have the same capacity or more, and have a fraction of the power draw with no moving parts. And that gap in technology is one of the main consumer electronics jumped in the last 20-ish years. I also want to talk about the SD cards in general here. I'm using an Amazon Basic one because one, they are pretty cheap. And it might sound cheap, but they're not really cheap because they're made by Longsys, the same company that owns Lexar. And they are reliable, affordable, and more than fast enough for an iPod mod such as this. I also didn't want to go with a traditional SanDisk one because this is one manufacturer that has compatibility issues with the iFlash adapters. So I recommend you just skip those in general. So there, that will fit nicely in there. You'll be able to actually see that on that back side here. I'm going to need to remove this cable as well here. So we lift that edge up. And that should just come right out. So there's the old backing. That's all removed. We got the battery and audio plugging out. So we're left with this front piece here. We're going to want to replace this front cover as well. With this Moonlight kit, actually, it has a wireless charger, haptic feedback, and I got the clear case, so I kind of wanted to get some aesthetic with that and get a clear front as well. I'm going to need to replace this front original metal one with this clear plastic one. So the original click wheel actually transfers from my original black faceplate to the new tinted one. Kind of losing some of the design touch with that, going from metal to plastic, but it is what it is. And that's the only real trade-off in this build. You're trading material quality for the ability to see your modifications. And I made that choice willingly, but it is a trade-off I wanted to share. Get the front plate replaced, we're gonna need to take out these screws. Now that we got that off, we're just gonna need to separate these two. Alright, you can see I got the old screen off of there. Looks like we got one speck on there. I'm just gonna try to wipe this off the best that I can here. And then really we just reinsert it the other way. Our new look we're gonna have here. I kind of like that it has the black but also shows some of the electronics on the front side there. So basically we just gotta put the new kit on the back here. So we're gonna go ahead and follow the directions on this kit here. Now we're basically gonna connect the audio cable and the power cable. From there we're gonna kind of test everything, make sure that it has a dummy fit, and we'll complete the other upgrades later. I think we need to clip this top piece. I'll show that on camera later, but first we gotta test our power here. You're gonna need to clip that edge clip all the way down to the metal. So I just plugged this in, we got power, and it looks like we have connect to iTunes to restore. So we have what we need here. We're just gonna have to let it charge, I think. So after putting all this together, it was time to boot it. And the first try, it booted right to the Apple logo, and it gave me a prompt to connect to the iTunes screen. And I had a lot of issues here, specifically when I was trying to use my MacBook, because the modern Mac OS doesn't really play nicely with older hardware such as this. But it's sad because the restore is non-negotiable. The microSD card doesn't have any of the firmware on it, and you have to use iTunes to write the firmware and format the hard drive. So Windows is recommended. Luckily I have a wonderful Windows machine right here. And it's just ironic that Apple made the iPod and they sold the iPod and they made the operating system for their Apple computers, but they just don't work with their old hardware. It's like they're purposely trying not to work on them any longer. I guess it's really just trying to put all the pieces together again and making sure everything is working. Now I want to put Rockbox on this device, so that's one thing I'm going to want to do next, but I will also want to be able to close this up and kind of have it as it should be. I have been thinking about soldering on the extra cables to do things like get the USB-C transfer cable over versus using like the 30 pin, but we'll see if I end up doing that or not. I think it would be a good addition to kind of do to this device. So it's officially 1 a.m. so I need to call it a wrap. But after all the hard work, this is the moment. After prying, cutting my hands, wearing gloves, and swearing, the 2007 iPod with a 2026 brain all inside. I guess it's not really the brain because the hardware is the brain, but you get the gist. It has everything a modern device has on a classic device such as this. It's kind of crazy that this is considered a classic device now. So I just found out that the 256 gigabyte card I put in here isn't even gonna work. Because this is a 6th generation, the logic board only accepts 128 gigabytes. So I'm gonna have to swap it out with a lower card so I don't have any issues going forward. But just a fun fact, so if you have a 6th gen, you can't go past that. I'd recommend finding a 7th gen. There's a modder named Olsro. He figured out how to bypass the 128 gigabyte limit on the 6th generation. The 128 gig limit isn't a hardware limit, it's a firmware limit. The 6th gen ships with 1.1.2 and the 7th gen is 2.04. The 7th gen actually supports a larger file system, but the hardware is essentially the same in both devices. The only difference is a chunk of read-only memory called system config or syscfg that tells the iPod which firmware it's allowed to run. But Olsro built a custom Rockbox build that flashes a modified sysconfig, and this convinces the iPod that it's a 7th generation, which allows it to restore to 2.04. And once you do that, it can see up to the full storage that you put on this device, up to 2 terabytes. So I want to know, do you actually want to see me do this mod? Drop a comment, maybe I'll make a part 2 to this video, we'll see. Maybe I'll also end up doing the data transfer mod, but it seemed a little bit above my comfortability in this. I really just wanted to get a working device without kind of pushing this into something further than it needed to be at this time. But maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it with this other iPod. Moonlit Market, send me another one, I'm begging you. The people want to see. So if you want to see that, drop a comment below as well. Let them know your thoughts. But once you get all of it back together, you have to close it back together. And the Classic Connect 2 seats the original hardware into the back housing with a thin bead of B7000, a flexible adhesive standard in phone repair. I lost my original tube that came with the kit, and I actually had E6000 on hand from a craft store. Oh, snap. But as I was doing that, the original tube exploded, and I believe it was from a buildup on the tip, but anyways, I ended up working around it and I got the iPod sealed, and it looks good as new and I haven't had any issues with it yet, knock on wood. So back to my original question, and that you might have been asking, was it worth it? And to me, I can say honestly, yes, I think it was worth it. I have an iPod from 2007 with flash storage, USB-C charging, Bluetooth, wireless charging when I drop it on a pad, and an open source firmware that lets me drag any audio file onto it like a USB stick. For $200 in parts, it really modernizes a classic device that a whole generation grew up with, and I strongly recommend, if you're into music, to at least consider this mod, especially if you already have an iPod on hand, because it will hold your music. You don't have to worry about Spotify's music catalog or any of Apple's music licenses or whatever other streaming platform you use and what music rights they have, because sometimes artists take their music from these services, and sometimes the music services actually boot artists off their platforms. So with a device like this, you actually can own the files that you have on your device. And if you do something like this, it's one that you upgraded, one that you put hard work and effort into. So in a year when everything streams and nothing is owned, there's something quietly defiant about a music player that you actually own. One that doesn't remove features in an update or take away songs over licensing disputes. And that's why I did this mod. Not because the iPod is better than my phone, because it really isn't. But because it's mine and it's something I could put a lot of effort into, and it gives me a nostalgic touch to a time when we worked on MP3 players, we managed music libraries. You can do that on a streaming surface, but it's not the same. You're not ripping CDs, you're not configuring your own music files, you're not pirating music and putting viruses on your family computer. Every part of this project, every link and every guide I mentioned is actually in the description, whether that's Olsro's GitHub, the Moonlit Market link, it's all in the description below. So if you have an iPod sitting in a drawer, charge it up. Maybe use it for a week and then decide what you should do with it. You might be surprised what a simple mod like this can do to an old device. It might bring back some old memories, and it might just be enjoyable for you if you're like me who just loves to tinker. So this is me sharing my experience with music listening, but I want to know, what is your first music experience? What was the device that you used? Maybe share your first song that you remembered caring about. Let's talk about that. I really want to know, whether it's a story about ripping CDs, getting a virus from downloading music, or the first iPod you ever owned and where it came from. Or maybe you just clicked on this video because you saw an iPod Classic. I thank all of you guys for even being here, and I want to hear from you on what made you click this video, and maybe share how this video brought out a fun memory. I love feedback from you guys and your comments. I love having these conversations, and I want to know what your story is. I'm sharing mine here so that with you guys, and I want you to share yours with me. So if you want to see more old tech come back to life, subscribe to this channel. Right now, I think I'm going to go listen to some music on here.